you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
We just going to open up a big old can today.
We are. And I loved our intro because it says about seeing our perspective and seeing another person's perspective. And can we understand that? And can we get past that? And yada, yada, yada. What's our topic today, Devon? You just told me about 30 seconds ago. Hit me.
Well, we've had a lot of discourse over the last few days. Let's say the last few years. And people, we can call it politics, we can call it religion, we can call it a whole lot of things. People just don't get along anymore. We cannot have civil discourse because we are so right and left, red and blue, black and white, brown and anything else. I mean, it's literally all these different conversations that we have marked people off. Liberal versus conservative. You know, we've got a lot of labels and people are on two factions. I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And they cut people out of life. And I really was hurt last week when I watched people. I listened to a discussion and they were younger people. And it was on TikTok and it was live. And they were talking about how horrible people were, that they were on the other side they were of one belief system, and that anybody else that was on the other one, they're horrible. They're just horrible people. And I thought, wow, have we become that? Have we become that where we literally divorce people from our lives because they disagree? And I want to know how, if we just don't get along with people, is there a way to come back from that and back away and work with them, be family members with them, show up at Thanksgiving? You know, can we be friends?
Well, the question would be, are they interested in being friends? Are they interested in being cordial? Are they interested in being compassionate, empathetic, fair? Or are they interested just in right? Like whatever is right. That's the I think that's the pendulum swing that people fall on, is that I'm right and you're not.
There's an old joke that it's kind of made the rounds. There are a lot of father-in-law. It's a father-in-law joke, you know. Well, I was talking to my old father-in-law and I was having a fight with my wife, and my wife was just having a fit. And the father-in-law says, son, I'm going to tell you something right now. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I put that little template over a whole lot of things. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I believe that you can walk in the room with people that you just do not agree with and do not hold any of their beliefs. And you can walk through there and be civil and find a kindness factor. I believe that's possible. But am I Pollyanna about that?
Well, I guess it depends on what room you're walking in. I mean, if you're walking into a room where you are, sorry, Jack just decided to get up. If you're walking into a room where you already know there's going to be conflict, because most of us know if we are entering into something that we are just hell-bent we're going to change their view, or if we're entering into something where it's just an organic conversation that starts off. Like if you are a Republican or a Democrat, whichever, and you walk into the opposing convention and you think going in there, I'm just determined they're gonna change. Well, you're probably cuckoo and probably should have stayed home that day, because it's not going to happen. Right. But if you're in an organic conversation with a friend, family member, stranger, and something comes up, then you have more of a playing field to have that healthy banter back and forth. Not, I see you laughing.
A little delusional on that one.
Well, yeah, a lot of delusional
Thanks,
on that
Elizabeth.
one. But I mean, it's whether or not what your intention is.
Right.
I'm going to go do this because I can. These days, I think social media, for as great as it is, I think it's also a platform that a lot of people hide behind, spew venom. And there is this really, depending on how you look at it, healthy or not, depending on which side whoever is on, there's a really dangerous risk being ran with collective consciousness on that. Because if you post something, or you go to a feed, or something comes across your feed and it's jarring, and you jump on that bandwagon, and then you start reading, and then you start commenting back, and you get into this kind of a salacious sort of diatribe with people. You're either fighting against them or you're agreeing with them. And the first thing I would say is, if you've got things that are, suggested for you, that are popping up on your feed and that make you cringe, I'd do a cookie clean out and start, changing how those things are coming across, because we all know algorithms have a way of doing that,
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
I've gotten a little back. I was echoing a little bit with you. Let's see. Elizabeth says, I believe we can always be civil. I also believe that many folks choose not to be.
Yeah.
Rhonda says people have to be happy in their own skin to start with.
Very true. Very true. And, we can say it's our family morals. We can say it's the thises and the that's, but the bottom line is, I was thinking, I thought, actually, this has popped in my head many times over the past several weeks. And, for as much as we like to think I'm right about this, like, when people talk about their need to be right, I mean, are there some natural laws and man laws that are truly right and wrong? Yes. But, sorry, Jack, lay down. He got this leg working again, and all of a sudden just thinks he can be a hoodlum. But anyway, each person always has the capability of being right. Like if you take politics, for instance, both sides believe they're right. Like they believe they're right. So when I hear people say, well, if we could all just get along and have world peace and it would just be great. Well, that's just not going to happen. But it doesn't mean we can't be civilized to one another. And the reason it's not going to happen is because if you're blue, you're going to stay probably blue and you're going to defend that. And if you're red, you're going to stay red and you're going to defend that. If you're Church of Christ, you're going to defend that. If you're Baptist, you're going to defend that. If you're agnostic, if you're atheist, if you're Buddhist, if you're everybody's going to defend their own thing. Does not mean we can't come together and go, I hear you. I hear your view. I respect the conversation. I don't agree with you, but I can have my opinion. You can have yours, and we can still get along. We've gotten so venomous with our words,
right?
Yeah, and everybody's looking for a not everybody. That's my clients would be going, ooh, you said everybody. That's an absolute. But there are a lot of people that are. They don't do, sorry, Otis has his antler now. Everyone is joining me today with, there's a lot of people who don't do their work because staying in a conflict-driven state of mind feels very familiar and it's almost intoxicating to some level. So they look for it.
Oh, wow. That's it. What's driving the conflict? What's driving the conflict? There's a book I read years ago, and I know it's somewhere in my collection, but it was called The Agony of It All. It's an old book. I don't even know if it's still in print. I got it at when Davis Kid was still open here in Nashville, and they, you know how they had the cheap books on the outside. It was like one that would, what, you know, it was like 50 cents or something. It was like some stupid, and it was a priceless book for me because we become addicted to the discomfort. Because that's how we're raised, addicted to the and the adrenaline of the fight. And I am just so aggravated. And the people who drive through traffic going, that is an adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm. And
The
it doesn't
agony.
mean that you actually enjoy it. That's the thing. It's a reward system in the brain. It doesn't mean you actually enjoy it. You don't get up in the morning and go, "Ooh, gosh, I hope there's traffic and I hope I get road rage today." But when it happens, the brain goes, "Yes, I'm familiar with this.
Yes, this feels good because it's giving me all those little things." I mean, it's like some people go and they work out and they get on a treadmill and they get the endorphins going that way. You can actually get some endorphins going just by shoving some adrenaline through your body, and anger will do that. And
You
sometimes
can also get those feel good adrenalines going if you're watching those cute little cats and puppies and horses and goofy little mini goats and mini cows, and just watching that, you can get that same feel good adrenaline going. It works both ways.
Mhm. It really does. But here's, I think that we have gotten so addicted to the rush of the anger. That's why I have people that I know, I have people that I'm related to that cannot stop watching, let's say, Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. They're all the same to me. They're all the same. They have different agendas, but it's not anything close to being news. I'm not a news person. It's a lot of, and sometimes I think that people don't realize that a lot of that, their whole point is to keep people watching.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you can get people watching is to get their adrenaline up, where they're invested. It's the same reason why crime shows with the teaser, "Hey, coming up," and we get
Even
it works the same way.
Even our Lifetime Movie Network, because it taps into our feel good side,
Yeah.
So it's really, it can be anything, but I would ask people to ask themselves, what's the driving force behind that? Because so many people are unconsciously addicted to unhappiness. I said that to a client one time, and she looked at me like I had two heads and I had sprouted some horns, and she wanted to slap me across the room. She actually got really upset with me. And anybody that knows me and has worked with me knows that I'm very compassionate, but I ask very direct questions. And that was a question that needed to be asked. And the answer immediately was, "I can't believe you would even say that." And then the next week, after thinking about situations that have unfolded and how that person had shown up in those situations, what they had talked about with family, with friends, posted on social media, were they doing things that were working in the highest and best favor of their happiness? Or were they doing things even unconsciously that were working in the favor of them staying stuck in what I call a low vibration? And they came back in and went, "I hate it when you're right." And I said, "I don't take any pleasure in being right, but it was just a question. And what's the answer?" And the answer was, I think maybe. How do I get out of this? So that's what we started working on.
That really, I think, is the bottom, the basis to the feuding that is online and is it's in our faces all the time, unconsciously addicted to unhappiness. And I think that's a question that we can all ask ourselves. Lisa said, cookie clean out, brilliant. I said, I know what people are going to be doing with their computers when they get home today. Elizabeth says, life is too short and too precious to go into a room or event with someone to prove to someone, something to prove to someone. It could simply be okay to disagree on anything.
Well, we would like to think as a human race that we're evolved enough to say, hey, it's okay. We don't have to agree on this.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to agree on it. I can still appreciate you as a human being, and we're good. But some people are like, no, if we don't agree on it, if you don't agree with me, I don't agree with anything in your life. You are rotten to the core, and there you go, stay away. And I'm just like, what happens when we do that to everybody? Suddenly your world is going to be perfect because the only perfect person in it's going to be you looking in the mirror going, everything's just the way I like it. I don't have to communicate with anybody. And it's like, is that really, I'm not talking about going up, toe to toe with people who are just absolutely conflict driven, because let's be honest, I don't care how sweet you are. If you have a desire to go up toe to toe with somebody conflict driven, you're probably conflict driven in Paisley's because you've just disguised yourself. You still like conflict.
Oh, I love that term, conflict driven in Paisley's. That's really kind of cool. The yin and yang of it. Okay. Oh, Lordy, I turned off the news years ago, Elizabeth says. If it is important, I'll find out some other way. And she continues with, I lived in loving unhappiness when I was actively living life as a victim. I'm absolutely over living in unhappy. I don't live in a fairy tale, but I do choose to look for the positive and the good. That is the choice. And I also think we can take it one thing further is we become addicted to the unhappiness. We become addicted to the adrenaline of the fight. And then we become addicted to trying to prove to someone that they are wrong. And we have to convince them to our side, or somehow we are letting our side down.
Well, and then there's another even deeper sort of sinister thing that goes on there. On the superficial level, we're going, I just want everybody to get along. I want world peace. And then we're going, let me just go on up in that room and start a conflict and see if I can't convince somebody to be my way. And then when the argument starts, whatever it is, grocery line, car traffic, wherever the argument starts, if it's a one-sided argument, doesn't even matter. Road rage makes people crazy. It's a one-sided argument all the time because one person doesn't give a shit and the other person is already driven off, right? But we will hang on to that and we will gnaw on that bone over and over and over until we become, well, it's not my fault. And then we're the victim. Yeah. And we like that place too, because, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Really? Okay. It's true. Sometimes you encounter people where you really haven't done anything wrong. You're just in the wrong place at the wrong time and they are angry. So they're going to lash out. But you also get to determine if you stay there and you take that, or if you just go, not today, Charlie Brown. I don't know what crawled up your britches, but we're not doing this. And you have the right to walk away and not hold on to that, or walk away and talk about it and talk about it and post about it and talk about it and chew on it. There's a clip that I saw some years ago, and I think Devon and you and I might have talked about this, but it's the difference in human beings and like the wild. And if you had a safari, like what is it called? The plain in Africa where the safaris are.
Oh, not the Sahara, that's the desert, but anyway, the African
Somebody
plain.
Will tell us what it is. All that's coming to my mind is the outback, and that's Australia. But anyway, if you have a zebra or a gazelle that is spotted, a lion spots them and they start chasing them, and the gazelle runs and runs and runs and runs and runs out. Right. Let's just say they outrun them. They get to the drinking hole and they're like, whew. And it takes about 90 seconds for their heart rate to go back down, and they just drink and they drink, and the other gazelles and the zebras and everybody walk up and they all just drink and drink and drink. Then they raise their heads up, sniff a little bit, and they continue on with their day. Well, as human beings, if we are chased by something that is fearful to us, we run and run and run and run and run. Mm-hmm. And then we get to the watering hole and we are exacerbated and we are, oh my gosh, I just can't believe anybody looking. Who's coming? Is somebody coming? Let me just speed dial this person and tell them. And we just talk about it. And then other people come up and we tell them a little bit more about it too. And part of the reason we do that is because our brain, when it happens the first time, the brain tries to match those chemicals in our body to give us that same high. So that's why sometimes people tell a story and they embellish it a little bit, or they tell it to one person and they don't get the response. If I tell you, Devon, XYZ, and you go, well, I'm sure glad you're okay. And I'm like, well, that's not what I was looking for. Let me call Elizabeth. Elizabeth, let me tell you what happened. And Elizabeth goes, well, I sure am glad you're okay. Well, that's not okay. Rhonda, let me tell you what happened. I mean, we keep doing this until we get that person that goes, oh, girl, I mean, let me tell you what I'd do. I would. And then you get in that thing because we're keeping it going.
Yeah.
You got to be conscious of how we all have a story.
What wolf are you trying to feed?
Amen. What wolf are you feeding? And we all have experiences and stories in life, and how we tell it will and who we tell it to will determine the next step. So if you're telling it to somebody that's going to keep you in a stuck mindset, or they're going to be conflict with you, then you're either agreeing unconsciously to stay in that.
Girl, I was watching this. I don't know why. I hadn't even had my coffee yet. I just was going through TikTok looking for, pig videos, and, like I do. And, something goats and stuff, just to kind of get me going. And for some reason, I got on this live thing about the Jason Aldean song, and they were millennials, and they were all, and I don't want to put them in a group. That was their age group. They were younger. They were young folk, still young, still just fresh, haven't had life turn on them like we have. Anyway, they got started, and all of a sudden I got caught up into it, and I felt that thing inside me, and I put on there, so I wanted to be on, and I wanted to have my voice heard. And I thought, and I sat there for a while, and I would cancel request. I go, what am I doing? I am getting into something to start my day that means nothing. Zero, zilch. No one here is going to solve the problem. No one here is going to do anything except get that thing going inside us. I was feeding the wrong wolf.
Well, and you know what? That's a perfect example. The Jason Aldean thing. We'll call it the Jason Aldean experience. There are generations, and this is a true thing. And yes, we can all be compassionate, understanding, observant. We can be all of this, but there's also generations that are born with a different social awareness. Like my generation, and definitely my daughter's generation, who falls in that millennial group, is born her generation was born with her first exposure in school being Columbine. So they are born with a different, I don't want to say political, because it's not political, but just a different social consciousness. And so they also have grown up in a time where social media and news and things have exploded, and every injustice and unjust has been, it's on the screen. And so we didn't grow up with that. So a lot of them will have something to say. It doesn't, I'm not saying pick a side with this Jason Aldean thing, but I'm saying they are more passionate about it because it's in their face all the time, And I can see that. Just like if you go up against somebody that thought Woodstock was stupid, or somebody that totally agreed with it, or Vietnam, and somebody who agreed, somebody who disagreed, you're going to have the same passion arguments, But you're right. You got to decide which. I'm not saying put your head in the sand and not say anything, but at least if we're going to express things, let's express them in ways where they are heard. Because if somebody comes at me and they're telling me, I think, and they sound kind of like a woodpecker on a tree, I'm probably just going to tune them out and then say, no, thank you. That's my thing to everything. My daughter laughs at me because people can say, blah, 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 blah. And I'll just go, no, thank you. And she's like, they weren't offering you anything. You just said, no, thank you. Like they were offering you. And I'm like, I know. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So she uses that now.
I love that. I'm a big First Amendment rights person. That's what I always believe in, because I was a journalist. And that's why I don't love what they call news these days, because there's not a lot of it, but there are a lot of people who are doing news. And I think on the local level, we've got a lot of people. I love Bob Mueller and my friends here at Channel 2. And I love what people are trying to do with giving what happens throughout the day. I don't watch a great bit of it, because just by virtue of you open a computer or your phone, you're going to get a certain amount of news during the day, whether you seek to avoid it or not. I just think that we can live in a world where I can listen, because I did open a can of worms with the Jason Aldean subject matter. I wasn't saying for the song or for the not song. I'm for the First Amendment. There are several artists I don't agree with how they do things, but I do fight for their right to be able to do it, because we have an American band that is actually in prison in Russia because they were over there performing, and it was a female group, and they're still in jail for what they sang. And I don't want us to be a world where we can't say what we think and can't say what we feel, but I also want us to live in a world where we don't cut people out because of what they say.
Or we don't intentionally use a split tongue because we can.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think that there's a difference in, I think that, and this is a hot button topic, so if anybody wants to jump on and scold me, go right ahead. But, you know, we live in a world where common sense wise and moral wise and character wise, we know what is not okay and what is okay.
Yeah.
And we choose to speak differently. We choose to use that. I can say this, nobody can stop me. And it's like, yeah, okay, nobody has to stop you, but it makes you look like a jerk. Like, you know, I've got friends that will say things, and when it comes out of their mouth, I'm just like, did you really just say that? And they're like, yeah, I can, you know, and I'm like, I get that. But like, do you stop and think about if there are kids listening, or if your grandmother was around, or like, are these things that you would really promote?
My dad used to say, he said, you know, I always think when something comes out of my mouth, what if something happened and that was the last thing I said?
Mm-hmm.
What was that? The people that heard me say that, and that, what if a lightning bolt came down and that's when I went, and that would be the last thing I was known for. And I've always kind of thought about that. You know, here's my thing about whether it's that song or whatever. I listened to opposing views. I listened to what people said. And you know, there was a young lady that got very, very judgmental and really kind of patronizing to me, like little old lady. And I'm, you know, and I did take offense at that, but I chose not to be offended because she doesn't know me. You know,
Right.
That's the bottom line. Is this people, usually most of the people on social media that really start reading your mail really don't know your mail to read. So you kind of put that in there, and I thanked her for her opinion, and I kind of moved on, and but I went into a deep dive. I really wanted to see what other people thought. You know, if it's an atrocity, why do you think that? Well, I don't hear any of those things in the song, but you know what? I don't have your burden.
Well, and I think too, it does go back to perception, right? I haven't heard the song. I mean, there's enough chatter about the song. I haven't heard the song. And even if I listen to the song and I put my 2 cents out there, there's 1,000 other people putting their 2 cents out there. I just think as human beings, this is a perfect example of why people, I think we just kind of, and you know, I'm not gonna blame it on 2020, but I am gonna say 2020 allowed people to live inside their own head and to be with themselves. And so they kind of got this, a lot of us, and I'm one of them, there's certain things that I'm this way about. You know, I reached this place where I'm like, yeah, I'm just not going to tolerate that anymore. You know, I don't need to tolerate that. That doesn't make me feel good. I don't want to engage in that anymore, whether it's a person, whether it's whatever it is. And so a lot of people live in hypersensitive or hyper alert. So where I might say, no, thank you. Somebody else is going to go, I mean, how many times do I have to tell you, get out of my face? That kind of thing. It's just our life experiences and how we're brought up and what triggers us. And there's a ton of people out there walking around with all these open wounds, and they're not doing their work. And then every time somebody brushes up against them unintentionally and that scab comes open, it's game on. It is game on. And that is just like, that's a very dangerous place to live, because it divides us far more than it unites us,
I try to say back when I was a kid, there was the saying, you don't know a man until you walked a mile in his moccasins. I try to, before I respond to someone, I try to think of what their life walk might be. If someone is offended by a song, even if they're offended for someone else, I want to go to the source and go, what are you hearing in this that hurts your heart? Because I really don't want to hurt somebody. I really don't want to hurt somebody. And I don't want to try to convince them that the song, they should listen to it and love it. I don't want to do that. I want to hear their heart. And I think that if we can start looking at each other and we can start looking at people and try to listen and hear what hurts them, what's at the core of what it is? Are you just wanting to be angry, or is something about this is really hurtful to you? Whether it's a song, whether it's anything, let me hear you out. And it's amazing when you hear somebody out for what really the issue is. Somehow that kind of diffuses the bomb.
It might diffuse the bomb, but it's not going to make them feel any better about whatever it is that sparked it to begin with.
No, but if I can make one person feel heard or seen or listened to, I think 2020 also made us feel very unseen. We were locked in our homes. We live in a world now where we feel disenfranchised, I think. And so now everybody is over the top to be heard, seen. My opinion matters. I matter. And I thought, well, maybe if we worked a little bit harder to make other people feel like they mattered or that we listened, maybe that would help some of the relationship, because that's where civil discourse started.
It absolutely might help some of it, but then we also have to be aware that you're going to have some of those people that when you are out of the goodness of your heart wanting to hear them, you're not going to be able to find the off button on them, because it's going to start with one thing and then it's going to go to the next and then it's going to go to the next and it's going to go to the next. And before long, if you don't have good limit, I said the other day, I posted a social media thing, said I'm no longer going to use the word boundaries because they feel so rigid, like limits, parameters. If you don't have healthy limits or parameters around how you're interacting with someone, you will can soon find yourself resentful that you've reached in to help and now feel taken advantage of. So the offer to help to make the picture a healthier picture or a happier picture now is flipped.
Well, there are going to be people that we don't agree with. There are going to be people who don't like us. There are going to be people in this world that are just a throbbing nerve waiting to just come into your space. But I think we start out with listening, with being there, with trying to use communication skills. And it comes back to communication skills, sometimes a touch, sometimes whatever, and know that it's going to be okay when they walk away and nothing is better. We cannot solve it and cannot resolve it for every situation.
And also that it takes two. You can't go in with an expectation that that someone is going to make you feel better or that you're going to make someone feel better, but also it does take two. So if your expectation is that I want to sit and I want to hear you, but then they still are hot when you leave, it can't be, well, they just didn't hear me and they just don't understand and they just don't care. It's just like, I tried. and also looking at why we try, because some people are, you know, they are destined to save the world, and other people are like, I'm gonna let this person out in traffic, you know.
Yeah, and
Well, I should say self-imposed destined to save the world.
yeah, the I think too that I don't have in my age, I'm at a place in my age which I really love. I mean, getting older has allowed me. I don't have to have anybody agree with me now, and I don't have to convince someone that I am right. I just don't have to anymore. I can know in my heart my belief system, and I can hear some of the things. And most of the time, I can find a few common ground things. There are people. I mean, I don't have anything. There is no common ground for human traffickers. There is no common ground for people who kill people. You know, there's no common ground with me in some certain situations. But for the most part, the human philosophy, there's some common ground that we can try to find. And then if we can't, being able to let it go and not hold on and not let that fester inside us. I don't have to be right and I don't have to win. I don't have to win the argument.
Right.
Because let me tell you something. It takes two to win and to have an argument.
Well, I think you can be passionate about what your thoughts are and how you share things with people, but I also think I know I piss a lot of people off because I really don't get pulled into a lot of stuff. And so I have people in my family circle that love them dearly. But I also have people in my family circle that they're conflict driven, and they will start in on something and I'll just go, okay. And I really don't do that to be a smart ass. I am not punching that dance card. I am not doing it. Not because I don't think I'm right, not because for no other reason than it's not my jam, man. I mean, I would have read, no, thank you. There's enough people in the world that want to do that conflict stuff. I don't have any desire. I don't live with my head in the sand, but I will not intentionally let someone drag me into an argument and be unaware that that's what they're doing. I'm that person that my mom will tell you this, and she shakes her head. I will watch on an hour and a 90-minute Lifetime movie. I'll watch an hour and 15 minutes. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going home. And she's like, what? Don't you want to see the end of it? And I'm like, you know, and she's like, don't you care about what's happening? And I'm like, I mean, it's a Lifetime movie. You know, and we joke about it because I can get up and I'm just not attached to that kind of, you know. So when someone with the drama comes in, I can feel my heart spike. I feel my blood pressure spike. And yes, I think in every one of us, there's this kind of, oh yeah, bring it. But then we have to ask ourselves, is what I'm saying going to be helpful?
Right.
Or am I just biting this so that I can release a little, you know, gas, you know, and it's like, yeah.
For those of you that we're talking, the wolf that we feed, there are two wolves within us, the one dark and one light, and one that argues and one that's, Anyway, and which one grows? The one that you feed. And so which wolf do you choose to feed in yourself? And that is kind of the point in this. There's a way to have civil discourse and to communicate, letting someone be heard, know your limits, walk away. Learning to walk away is so gentle, and not jumping in to try to convince everybody that we're right will probably give you a more peaceful life. And I'm not saying that you have to spend your everyday with these people, because you know the conflict driven people, you know, before a family get together, they're going to be those people that I had one side of my family that I didn't have anything in common with.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't agree with any of their choices, anything. And actually choices that I fought for and stood in protest lines against the way they thought back when I was in college. But I go home now and I think I can get through this by engineering the conversation into something else. And if it goes into the dark place, I have a set of keys.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I can go home now. I don't need to see the end of this movie. So that's kind of the way that we do it. You don't have to get into this, but you can do this. And it's all right. It's all right. And you can love them and bless them and know that somehow, usually the really, really strong protestations come from a fear that is down inside. Usually everything is fear-based.
Well, and I think that I think socially we live in a place now where it may be fear based, but it's also anger based because we've seen so many things happen over and over and over that are not okay. They're not okay. And as a society, there's very little movement happening. So people they do get angry about that. And rightfully so, is there fear at the bottom of that? There could be, or hurt, pain, but I think that culturally we are a pot that is soon to boil over.
Yeah.
And we're not, and people are, they don't know how to handle conflict. So they either run from it or they just jump in it. And it's like, there's another way. There's a way to handle it.
Yeah.
Which keeps you respecting yourself. Because again, on both sides of any conflict, each party has to feel like they respect themselves. But the problem is they feel like if I don't say this, then I'm not respecting myself. And it's like, but no, you can say things without being conflict driven. We just don't have a very good, effective communication in our culture.
And, I guess that the communication major inside of me is going, we have to work on that. And that's where it is. And it's how do you communicate, and listening is first. And I always say there's a really great poem, The Prayer of St. Francis is great. And I encourage everybody, if you don't know it, look it up. Look it up. I ain't gonna read it all to you, but it's really a beautiful thing. It's almost like the Serenity Prayer. And that's another good one too, to kind of put yourself in that thing. And we can work on our communication skills one little bit at a time, but know that it won't be instant. It's kind of like going to my chiropractor and get spinal decompression. It takes a while and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and moving through it. And then knowing that for some people, it may never work.
And also knowing that before we start trying to change other people and their communication, learn yourself in your own communication. Because there's gifts in that. There's gifts in them. There are nuggets.
They're right. They're right. Well, we have gone overtime today. We're going to close things up. If you want to reach out to me with a topic, devonoday@gmail.com. And Teri, you take it home.
All righty. Well, I can be found at terrypugh.com or on Instagram under Transcending Turbulence. And as always, we appreciate each and every one of you choosing to spend your time and energy with us. I know sometimes we get on a roll and sometimes we got a lot of interaction with folks, and sometimes there's a lot of stuff coming in and there's just not time to get it put up there. So if you left comments today, we will go back and acknowledge those. If you're watching us live, fantastic. We love that you're with us. If you're watching us on the replay, hashtag it replay. And until we see you again next Wednesday, we want you all to take care of yourself, learn how to communicate effectively, and increase your peace. See ya.